My ex-wife tried to replace me with her new family, but I fought back. Hello. My name is Jordan Ellis. I'm 38 years old, and I've been divorced from my ex-wife, Camille, for 4 years now. We have a 10-year-old son named Miles, and per the court order, we share 50-50 custody, strictly alternating weeks, every decision split down the middle. Things between Camille and me were rocky during the divorce, especially when it came to parenting. About a year in, the court had to intervene and recommended we use a co-parenting app to keep our communications civil and documented. No phone calls, no texts, just facts and logistics. I've stuck to it religiously. I've always taken fatherhood seriously. I help Miles with homework, attend every teacher meeting, every reading night, and every school play. I'm on a first-name basis with half the staff at his school. I even volunteer in his classroom whenever the school allows it. I show up, always have. 2 years ago, Camille got remarried to a man named Patrick. That was fine until his family got involved. They're tight-knit, overly involved, and from what I've seen, they view themselves as co-parents even though legally they aren't. At first I ignored it, but gradually they started popping up at everything. PTA events, school concerts, even math club. His parents, Edward and Sandra, began acting like they were Miles's grandparents. It felt like they were trying to overwrite my place, subtly, quietly, but unmistakably. I kept my distance at school events, stayed polite, and didn't cause a scene no matter how hard Sandra's glares were, or how Edward muttered comments under his breath when I passed.
I stayed in my lane and focused on what mattered. My son. Then came last week. There was a scheduled parent-teacher conference. It landed on one of my custody days, so I confirmed my attendance right away. That same afternoon, Camille messaged me through the app. "Please don't come," she wrote.
She explained that she, Patrick, and Patrick's parents were already planning to attend, and that my presence would make things uncomfortable. According to her, the school only needed one parent there, and since her group had made arrangements, I should sit this one out. I stared at the message in disbelief. I checked the calendar. It was still my custody day. I checked the court order. Nothing had changed. I still held equal decision-making power, so I responded. I told her I would be attending, that parent-teacher conferences are for legal guardians, not extended family playing dress-up. Her reply was instant. She accused me of causing drama and said I was only coming to make a scene, that I didn't care about Miles's schooling, and I just didn't want to feel left out. According to her, I should respect the family dynamic and let them handle it. I didn't argue. I called the school instead. The front office staff were kind. They told me I absolutely had the right to attend and that legal parents are always welcome. They did note it could get chaotic with multiple attendees and asked everyone to be respectful. I assured them I would be. That evening, I updated Camille through the app. I told her again I'd be there, that I had questions for the teacher, and I wasn't going to be sidelined by people who weren't even legally relevant to our son's education. The next morning, I woke up to a wall of text. Camille accused me of being jealous, of sabotaging her peace, and of refusing to move on. She said I was obsessed with control and warned me she'd pursue legal action if I kept pushing. I didn't bite, but I saved everything. Screenshots of our messages, the school's email confirmation, all of it. Then I called my lawyer, just in case. The conference was on a Thursday. I cleared my schedule and showed up 20 minutes early. When I turned the corner toward the classroom hallway, I saw them. Camille, Patrick, Edward, and Sandra, already there talking in hushed tones. Edward glanced at me and muttered something. I didn't respond. I leaned against the wall and waited. When the teacher came out, she visibly froze, her eyes bouncing from me to their crowd. She suggested we split the meeting into 2 sessions. Camille quickly declined and insisted everyone could be civil. Fine by me. Inside the classroom, Patrick and his parents all sat on one side of the table. I sat across from the teacher, alone. She began reviewing Miles's academic progress. All was fine until math came up. She said he was falling behind, often distracted. I mentioned I'd seen similar behavior at home: forgetfulness, zoning out, and trouble following steps. I gently suggested we consider an academic evaluation. Before she could reply, Patrick cut in. He insisted Miles was too advanced, that boredom was the issue. Then Sandra chimed in. She warned against labeling children too early and said evaluations would follow him forever. She dismissed everything as a phase. The teacher remained professional. She clarified that formal evaluation required both legal parents' consent. I agree, I said simply and firmly. Camille stared at the floor. After a long pause, she mumbled, "We'll talk about it later." But she didn't say no. The meeting wrapped up. I walked out first. As I passed, Edward stepped in front of me. "You're driving a wedge," he said, voice low. Sandra added, "You're doing this for power, not love." I didn't flinch. I'm his father, not a placeholder, and this school, education, this is between Camille and me, no one else. That night, Camille sent another long message accusing me of humiliating her in front of her family, calling me vindictive and unstable, and warning that she was now seriously considering legal action again. I didn't respond, but I saved it. 2 days later, I got a call from the school counselor. She thanked me for raising concerns and confirmed the evaluation process had started. Later that day, I picked up Miles. He was unusually quiet. At home, as he unpacked his bag, he finally spoke. "Grandma Sandra said you ruin things, that you're just trying to make trouble." I sat down beside him. "I know this is confusing," I said gently, "but you don't have to worry. The adults will sort things out, and I'll always be here for you." When he went to his room, I sent Camille one final message. I told her in-laws had no right speaking about me to our son. It was confusing, damaging, and completely inappropriate. She brushed it off, said they were protective, and accused me of being dramatic. That night, I went through every thread, school volunteer pages, group chats, and email lists, and removed or blocked every member of Patrick's family. Then I emailed the school directly, attached the custody agreement, and formally requested that only legal guardians be allowed to participate in any school communications or decisions. The school responded by updating the file. Effective immediately, only Camille and I had access to school staff. That night, Camille messaged again. "You're isolating people who care about Miles. You're using paperwork to punish my family." She didn't mention Sandra's comment to our son, not once. I didn't reply, but I started a folder. Every message, every meeting, every whispered comment, documented. 2 days later, a mutual friend texted me out of nowhere. "Hey man, heard you're trying to take Camille's son away from her." Her son. Rumors were spreading. She was laying the groundwork. I called my lawyer again. He told me what I feared. "This looks like the start of parental alienation. Keep documenting everything." That weekend, I went to Miles's soccer match. I sat at the far end, away from them. During halftime, I saw Sandra whisper something while Edward shook his head and said loudly, "This guy wants to take over everything." I kept my cool, took out my phone, and wrote down everything, because this isn't just about a parent-teacher conference anymore. This is about erasing me, and I won't let that happen. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope between keeping things calm for Miles and preparing for a storm I could sense was coming. Camille hadn't said another word about the school restriction, but the silence wasn't peace. It was pressure building. Then came the blow. A week later, I got a message through the co-parenting app. She wanted to discuss a revision to the custody schedule. No details, just that it wasn't working anymore and that Miles needed more consistency. She proposed that she take primary custody with me having alternating weekends, I sat there staring at the message, my jaw clenched. It wasn't about Miles. It was about control, about power, about rewriting history. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer and scheduled an urgent meeting. When we spoke the next morning, his tone was flat but serious. "She's not playing around, Jordan. If she tries to file for a custody modification, it won't come down to who has the better family. It'll come down to evidence, and you're doing the right thing by documenting everything." I knew I had to stay calm and stay smart, so I did the one thing that had always worked. I stayed present for my son. I showed up to every practice, every school event, every drop-off and pick-up, even when Patrick's parents gave me those smug, pitying looks, like they were already planning the victory. Speech. Then 2 weeks later, Camille made her move. She filed a formal petition to modify custody, citing emotional instability, combative behavior, and an inability to co-parent peacefully. She claimed Miles was confused and anxious around me, and that I was the reason. She included screenshots of our most recent app messages, but only hers, none of my replies, no context, no proof. But I had the full thread, and I had witnesses, teachers, school counselors, and even the office staff who had overheard the tension at the conference. We prepared our case. The court date was set for 4 weeks out. In the meantime, Camille doubled down on her campaign. Her husband's parents started showing up to pick up and drop off, acting like they were the ones exchanging custody. Sometimes, Miles would come out of school, see them first, and look around awkwardly before spotting me. He started asking quiet questions. Why is Grandpa Ed always there? Why do people keep saying you're not supposed to be around? And one night, as I tucked him into bed, he whispered something that cracked me down the middle. "Am I allowed to still love you even if everyone else doesn't?" I had to leave the room for a moment before I came back and knelt beside him. "Listen to me, Miles," I said, steady but soft. "You never have to choose between loving anyone, but no matter what anyone says, I'm your dad. That doesn't change, ever." He nodded. He didn't smile, but he hugged me tightly. That was enough. Court day. 4 weeks passed in a haze of preparation, dread, and rehearsing the same facts over and over. I wore a plain navy suit, no theatrics, no nerves, just truth. My lawyer presented the full message threads, the school communication logs, statements from the counselor and Miles's teacher confirming my involvement and Camille's attempt to exclude me, and even the email where the school confirmed that only legal guardians should be involved going forward. Camille's lawyer painted me as erratic and inflexible, said I was antagonizing her extended family, and said I was damaging a support system. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't attack. I simply told the judge the truth. I am not trying to limit my son's relationships, but I will not allow myself to be replaced. I will not allow legal decisions about his life to be made without my input, and I will not be erased from my son's world because someone else's parents want to play house. The judge was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, and her ruling was clear. Custody remained joint, unchanged. Camille was formally admonished for attempting to sideline me without cause. The judge instructed that only legal guardians be permitted at school, conferences, meetings, and academic decisions, unless both parties consented in writing. Finally, the court ordered family counseling for both Camille and me to rebuild a healthier co-parenting dynamic for Miles. As we left the courtroom, Camille didn't look at me, but I didn't care, because this wasn't about her. This was about my son. 2 months later, things aren't perfect, but they're different now. Patrick's parents have backed off. No more appearances at school, no more whispered insults at soccer games. The school enforces the boundaries. The counseling sessions are uncomfortable but useful. Camille's learned she can't just erase me, and maybe, slowly, she's realizing I'm not the enemy. Miles is doing better. The academic evaluation revealed a mild attention disorder, nothing severe, but enough to get him extra classroom support. He's thriving now. And last week, when I picked him up from school, he came running to me, grinning ear to ear, holding up a math quiz with a bold red A+ on it. "Are you proud of me?" he asked. I knelt down, smiled, and looked him in the eyes. "I've always been proud of you, Miles, no matter what, and that is the only seat I'll ever need, front row, as his dad.